My name is Erick Barreat. I'm your co host. And here we have Laura, who is our marketing lead and co host.
Thank you, everyone, for joining and welcome. This is a space that we've created for any small business owners who's struggling with it. Not struggling. I always kind of say struggling, but it's only because we and I am in that bunch are in this, exploring the IT technology business and just learning from it and know how to apply in your own work and be more effective. And you could be facing that same thing in your business and how to make those steps. And we can help you with that. We can help you with all of those ideas. I don't want to say struggle or challenges, although they are. Who's not facing any?
Right.
But see, so welcome.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Laura. And just to piggyback on this, is that we meet every Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11:30 to 12:30. This is your hour. Um, this is where we can discuss ideas, news, solutions, challenges that you're probably facing with your technology. And then just topics that are interesting or trending right now, right? So this is really meant to be. We're trying to build a community of to educate folks on technology and what's trending and what's not. So today,
Mm-hmm.
and we usually have topics. Today we don't. Similar for Tuesday, we actually had finished one of our pillars that we were trying to educate on this month. So we'll start up on another pillar next month, which
Mm-hmm.
is going to be about AI. Right? We're going to
Yes.
do
So we're
yes.
gonna we're gonna actually start off with some principles of how you make decision in terms of choosing your technology. So we're gonna go a little bit into how do we do the process of that for customers to turn into an ROI perspective, because they do have to value their investment, and then go into those tools like AI. So everything in AI world is trending now, and I think all of that, I am just working on a software for field service promotion, and that means that the difference of the answering for anyone in the field service makes the difference. And so AI is introduced in this software already, and it's already given great return of investment for people that are on the go and such. And so all of those things we analyze for clients, and that's where we're heading. So we don't have anything structured today, but we will start off another series on the ROI of investment of technology and AI, your
That's
favorite
right.
subject.
Yeah, that's the boom, right? That's the
Yeah.
boom right now. So let's talk about that. So let's look at what's trending right now, and we'll go from there. Um, so let me look it up here. Let's see. Huh? I didn't get my emails today.
Yeah. I won't tell you what's trending for me, because then I'll be like, what? How is this possible? And I'm not.
Yeah. So I got one. So let me look. Let's share this. So the the CEO of Anthropic gave his thoughts on DeepSeek models, on
Okay.
DeepSeek's model. So let's see um, what he has to say about this. Actually, let me stop this and share again screen, and we're going to do this tab. How's that? And then let
Nice.
me make this bigger.
Better. Oh, just a tiny bit less. There you go.
What does this do? Ooh,
Ooh.
okay. We need some UI changes here. This They should probably be a sun and a moon, so that we know it's a
It's
theme
for
change.
that.
Yeah. All right. So
Oh, you're
let's
so
see.
spoiled.
I am. No, it's not that I'm spoiled. It's user experience is the
Yeah,
is
I know.
it's common
Yeah.
is we build applications all the time, and we need to make everything as intuitive as possible for the end user,
Yeah.
and I loved that it was just a switch in the corner that has no context as to what it does, um, but if it's like, yeah, it just makes people want to click on it, right? Like, what does this do? What?
Curious.
Yes, it makes people curious. So I like that. I don't like surprises, and I don't like making. I like making people curious on the topic at hand. But when it comes to usability or using something, I want them to know what it is. So I would have, if it was me, I would have made
The little moon and
a
sun. Yeah,
moon and
that
sun
makes
here. But
sense.
anyways, who cares? We're trying to read Dario Amodei's thoughts on DeepSeek, and what he thinks. So a few weeks ago, I made the case for stronger U.S. export controls on chips to China. Since then, DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company, has managed to, at least in some respects, come close to the performance of US frontier AI models at lower cost. It's very true. But I don't think it has to do with the chips. I don't The hardware is very important when it comes to scale, right? When you're scaling, when you're applying a service at scale, and to be able to um, run it for many people, it's very important. But I don't think that that's the most important thing about DeepSeek here, because when you're building the hardware, when you're building the software, you're not building it on that hardware, right? You're building it either on some service, some cloud service, or you're building it locally. In this case, DeepSeek can be run locally with the hardware that's on your
Mm.
machine. So I I would say not necessarily here, but I would say, um, and let's see what he says first, right? I don't want to talk about it. Maybe he mentions in it later on, but I hope to see here is that an open source perspective, because DeepSeek is not just DeepSeek. They actually used other open source models to build DeepSeek R1 and their V3 models on top of. So they used Gwen 2.5 and they used Llama 3 to build their DeepSeek R1 and their V3 models. So it's not necessarily I wouldn't say it necessarily to the hardware. The hardware is important conversation. It's an important topic to the AI piece, but really mainly to it's leveraging open source models to do
Cost.
to and
Hmm.
so when they said, oh, we only built this for $5.4 million,
Hmm.
they're
I think
not.
that was a big claim. Hmm.
Yeah, that's a big claim, but they're not telling you that it's $5.4 million on top of all the work that was done to build the Gwen 2.5 models and the Llama 3 models, right? So because they couldn't create DeepSeek without them, without those two models. Um, well, I'm pretty sure they could have, but it would have not been as fast, right? So what they've done is they've gotten, like every technologist, they've gotten the technology that already exists, and they've built a framework, or they've made it better. They've built something better on top of it. So let's continue here. I won't focus on whether DeepSeek is or isn't a threat to US AI companies like Anthropic, although I do believe many of the claims about their threats to the US AI leadership are greatly overstated. Yes,
Hmm.
I do think that that's greatly
Agree.
overstated,
Hmm.
um, because of what I just mentioned, right? If you understand how DeepSeek is operating, or at least how their models are operating, they couldn't have done it without US AI leadership, right? They couldn't have done it without Llama 3 models. The Gwen 2.5, I think, is Alibaba's model. Let's take a look at that. So Gwen 2.5. Where does that come
That
from?
was a joint effort, right? I thought I remember that.
Yeah, I want to see where that comes from. Where is Gwen coming from? About. I think Gwen is a Chinese model. Yeah, it's from Alibaba. Gwen is an Alibaba model. Hold on. Yeah. So there was Gwen. Uh, so it's a family largely developed by Alibaba Cloud. So yeah, it's they're improving Alibaba's models, and then they also used some technology from Meta's open source model, right? Um, and so that's the claim here, right? I do think that this UAI leadership greatly overstated. So instead, I'll focus on whether DeepSeek's releases undermine the case for those export control policies on chips. I don't think they do. In fact, I think they make export control policies even more existentially important than they were a week ago. Yeah, I mean, right when you if you have they have the model. It's they have the model already. It's there. We can't do anything about that. The model's there. They can use it, but now can they scale it? Right, operationally efficient, where the hardware comes into play to be very important. Which NVIDIA is leading that charge, right, when it comes to the chips. So um, it doesn't make sense why now their stock has dropped 600 billion because all these models need hardware if they want to operate at scale. And the leaders of that hardware is NVIDIA and AMD. And I guess that's just very short-sighted. I guess it's it's a good time to buy Nvidia. Do I think Nvidia stock was inflated? Yes. Is this a market
Probably.
correction? Most likely, but I don't know. Right? I don't. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds. That's the beauty about the economy. It's you never know. Someone else might come back. OpenAI has hardware investments in other companies. There's other companies trying to join the market space as well. So he says export controls serve a vital purpose, keeping democratic nations at the forefront of AI development. To be clear, they're not a way to duck the competition between the US and China. In the end, AI companies in the US and other democracies must have better models than those in China if we want to prevail. But we shouldn't hand the Chinese Communist Party technological advantages when we don't have to. So this is a very so he has a very U.S. versus China stance,
Hmm.
and you can see that obviously we want the U.S. to win here. So let's talk about what's the next step. So the three dynamics of AI development. Before I make my policy argument, I'm going to describe three basic dynamics of AI systems that are crucial to understand. Scaling laws, a property of AI, which I find I and my co founders were among the first to document back when we worked at OpenAI, is that all else equal, scaling up the training of AI system leads to smoothly better results on a range of cognitive tasks across the board. So, for example, a $1 million model might solve 20% of important coding tasks. A $10 million model might solve 40%, 100 million, 60%, and so on. These differences tend to have huge implications in practice. Another factor of 10 may correspond to the difference between an undergraduate and PhD skill level. And thus, companies are investing heavily in training these models. So these are scaling and training. And again, right, going back to DeepSeek, they spent $5.4 million, but they only spent $5.4 million on top of the investment that was already done by Alibaba and by the Meta, right? So that it's a they made a tweak, right? It's like um,
It's
compared to
not what you
Formula One.
say, it's how you
Yeah,
say it.
yeah. Like Formula One, right? Comparing that to Formula One. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you make minor tweaks to the vehicle, to the Formula One car, and then it just has a performance advantage, right? But then what happens is that as soon you have to report that in order to you have to report the technology that your vehicle is using in the
Mm-hmm.
race. And so what happens once you report it? All of the other teams try and figure out how to build that same technology so that it's an even race, right? And you might have the advantage for the first couple of races, but then after that, it's the game starts to even the field again, right? It's competition. Competition is always going to, over time, eventually even out, and there's always going to be someone else that's going to innovate something that pushes them over the edge. And then the most, and I love the Formula One um, analogy here because at the end of the day, you can have the best technology, but the only thing that matters is the driver, right? The driver that's
Super
using the
right.
technology, the
Yes.
driver that's learning the course and stuff like that. And so, same analogy here. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Shifting the curve. The field is constantly coming up with ideas, large and small. That makes things more effective or efficient. It could be an improvement to the architecture of the model, a tweak to the basic transformer architecture that all of today's models use. And that's what's happening here with DeepSeek, right? They just made a minor improvement and they got a lot of results, or simply a way of running the model more efficiently on the underlying hardware. New generations of hardware also have the same effect. What this typically does is shift the curve. If the innovation is a 2x, a 2x compute multiplier, then it allows you to get 40% on a coding task for 5 million instead of 10 million, or 60% for 50 million instead of 100 million, etc. Every frontier AI company regularly discovers many of these compute multipliers. Frequently, small ones, 1 to 2x, sometimes medium ones, 2x, and every once in a while, large ones, 10x, because the value of having a more intelligent system is so high. This shifting of the curve typically causes companies to spend more,
More.
not less, on training models. The gains in cost efficiency end up entirely devoted to training smarter models, limited only by the company's
Yeah.
financial resources. Man, it's a snake eating itself, right? You make it faster, but you spend all the money that you make on it on making it better, and it's a snake eating itself,
Yeah.
and that's what's going to happen. And that's innovation, right? We just continue to innovate. We continue to move the needle
Input.
forward, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
get better input. Well, do you have any questions so far, Laura? I know I
So
don't know
so
what questions you
far,
might have.
so far, I have understood that for um, since our focus is small business, I think part of all of these does kind of like create a vision for people to um, big people, big things, big companies, big tech, big everything is just creating the arena, and they
Yeah,
are in their seek of understanding and competition, which I hopefully I dream in this world where it's healthy and is just getting it better for a solution for everyone. Uh, but for small business owners that would want to implement AI in their company, um, we want to say that it all depends on their industry, right? Because healthcare, for example, I read uh, there are these highly amazing ways of prescriptions now that are definitely helping people uh, diagnose and be better and be more accurate on health, and that you don't need that for um, you know small restaurant, like maybe not restaurant, but I don't know, for
It's a use case,
something
right?
simple, right?
Right.
Like something that I don't know what the something simple is, because a restaurant can be a chain, and it can be huge too. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we don't need to feel a little bit, what do you call it? It's not, the word is not overwhelming, but when you feel
What's it in Spanish?
como intimidado.
Intimidated.
Yeah, exactly. Como oh, this is working for everyone over there, out there, but it doesn't mean that it works for me. No, it does work.
Yeah.
It does work in a way where, like, I saw these
The fear
stats,
of the
like I was saying.
unknown. Intimidated by the
Yeah.
fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so even when all of these costs and things add up, and at the end, I think that at the end of the day, in the long run, you will see how those turn back to you in greater results. A lot of people are scared into 10x's, which is what I we were just reading, but it is possible. It is possible to 10x on a small scale business perspective. And what you could do is to get the guidance.
Uh
Looking
oh.
at the letterboard the other day, we saw, okay, this is good for this is good for that. Uh, but at the end of the day, it all depends on how you treat your data. Is that
Yes.
what
Yeah.
data are you
Well,
building with your company?
and that's what they're spending money on, like these
Yeah.
training the models on the data. Like that's where this is all about, making
Mm-hmm.
them smarter, getting better data, better inference of that data. That's what this is going for, right? To making
Mm-hmm.
them more intelligent system. um, and so that's literally what they're spending time on.
Yep.
um, because there's a vast knowledge of everything, and there's nuance in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so to capture the essence of a field is hard. It would be kind
Mm-hmm.
of
It only
difficult.
takes your experience. It's like
Yes.
what we tell our customers. It's like, you're going to guide me, but we're going to guide you too. I mean, it's a joint effort.
Correct. So yeah, let's
So
see.
we were just in, because the value of having a more intelligent system is so high. Is that where it was?
Yeah, so this shifting of the curve typically causes company to spend more, not less, on training models. The gains in cost efficiently end up entirely devoted to training smarter models, limited only
To
by the company's
companies.
financial. Yep. So
Mm-hmm.
people are naturally attracted to the idea that first something is expensive, then it gets cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
as if AI is a single thing of constant quality. And when it gets cheaper, we'll use fewer chips to train it. I like that thought. If people are naturally attracted to the idea that first something is expensive, then it gets cheaper. And actually, I'm one of those folks because um,
You want to
when
invest in quality.
yeah, and I'm actually one of those. No, I remember we were doing an analysis of an AI product, and it was kind of expensive, right? To It was an expensive product, and we were talking about negotiating of the terms of the length of the service, right? How long should we actually have that? And my argument was, well, we shouldn't want to lock into a long term, because the whole AI ecosystem, the industry, is changing rapidly, monthly. And so, if anything, we should just lock into a 1 year because it should get cheaper after that. That was my assumption at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it should get cheaper. The AI over time, if they're so, my thought is that that thought is right if they're
Mm-hmm.
not updating the model, right? If they choose one model, one version of that model
Mm-hmm.
in their AI systems,
Not
then
changing.
then it's not changing, and so over
Mm-hmm.
time that should get cheaper. Yes,
No.
but if I'm a business and I'm trying to leverage AI, and we know AI is
Mm-hmm.
getting better, I want it.
You want to change it.
I want to change it. I want to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I want the better one.
Improve
I
it.
want to
Yeah.
use the improved model, and I
Mm-hmm.
want and I want those companies that I'm working with that are these AI software companies. I want them to also be doing this improvement. So the thought that first something is expensive, then it gets cheaper, is true if you don't change it anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just make it, and then it's static. There's no improvement to it. And so that I love this, as if AI is a single thing of constant quality. And when it gets cheaper, we'll use fewer chips to train it. But that's not where we are in the AI space, right? We're not at the end of it. We're at the beginning of this AI space. And so
If anything, we've learned is never enough.
it's not enough, right?
Yes.
And so what does he say next? But what's important is the scaling curve. When it
Mm-hmm.
shifts, we simply traverse it faster because the value of what's at the end of the curve is so high. In 2020, my team published a paper suggesting that the shift in the curve due to algorithmic process is 1.68 times a year. That has probably sped up significantly since.
Mm-hmm.
It also doesn't take efficiency and hardware into account. I'd suggest the number today is maybe
Wow.
around 4x a year. And that's true, right?
Right.
Look at our phones,
Mm-hmm.
what we started with and where we're at now with phones. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's definitely part of that scaling and making things better, and the attention and the effort that every mind in the world
It's
that is
different.
working, yeah, that is not only different, but we're all solving different problems. And when
Yep.
we solve a particular problem, um, there are people working on other problems that integrate our solution into their solution, and then it creates a domino effect of efficiencies and improvements to all of the technologies. And so that is very accurate, especially with this, that AI goes into every industry. It's not just one industry. It's not just an
It's
innovation
all
for
of
one.
them.
It's for
Mm-hmm.
all of them. And so the
Yeah.
rate of speed as it improves, since it affects so many industries, is large. It's a large improvement because the world is working on it, right? The entire world, everybody in the world, we have folks all over the world working on it. And so, yeah. So it also doesn't take into, okay. So okay, 4x. Another estimate is here. Okay, so he adds a link. Let's talk into it. What he says, algorithmic process. Progress in language models performance surpasses what we'd expect from merely increasing computing resources occurring at a pace equivalent to doubling computational power every 5 or 14 months. Okay. Our result reported estimate ranges, Moore's law doubling time. Okay, so this is comparing Moore's law reported estimate range. So yeah, so here's what he's reporting as his result, and then here are what people are reporting. So in some cases we're above Moore's law, and for the most we're below, or right above. So It depends on which where we are. So we're going in that direction. Okay, let me go back. Okay, shifts in the training curve also shift the inference curve. And as yeah, everything, every shift, every change affects everything else. As a result, large decreases in price holding. Sorry. As a result, large decreases in price holding constant the quality of model have been occurring for years.
There's that example, Claude.
Yeah. So Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which was released 15 months later than the original GPT-4, outscores GPT-4 on almost all benchmarks while having a 10x lower API price. It's true. Number three, where are we? Okay, we got to read faster. So shifting the paradigm. Every once in a while, the underlying thing that is being scaled changes a bit, or a new type of scaling is added to the training process. From 2020 to
Only
2023,
in
the
three
main thing,
years.
yep, in 3 years, the main thing being scaled was pre-trained models. It's like we have the algorithms, we have the frameworks. Now we just need to train them on more data and scale them on more information. Models trained on increasing amounts of internet text with tiny bit of training on top. So now in 2024, that's where RL comes in, which is reinforcement learning to train, and that's where DeepSeek spent most of their time for
Mm-hmm.
the Gwen 2.5 and the Llama 3 model. This is the framework that they worked on to improve. They provided a framework of reinforcement learning that provided the output that we're seeing today with DeepSeek. To train models to generate chains of thought has become a new focus of scaling. Anthropic, DeepSeek, and many other companies have found that this training greatly increases performance on certain select objectively measurable tasks like math, coding competitions, and on reasoning that resembles these tasks, which is true. That's the whole purpose of that deep think and the reasoning, the O1 reasoning.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
experience that you're adding to the. It's actually literally the experience that you're adding to the AI model.
exactly,
You're just giving them work to do. It's like you and I every day.
exactly. So this new paradigm involves starting with the ordinary type of pre-trained models and then a second stage using reinforcement learning to add the reasoning skill. And that is the difference. The only difference, because I don't think the R1, the DeepSeek R1 or the
Mm-hmm.
V3 model is necessarily better than any of the leading models today. Um, I think it just has a framework of reasoning that is better, and
Mm-hmm.
that's important. That's very important for because that's what we're trying to get, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
why did we get this output? Like when you're using it for any industry, why is it right?
Yeah.
Why
I
is that
wonder.
output?
I
Where did it
wonder
get that
if
output?
I wonder if you can clarify something that to me is it almost feels like what we're doing in essence, no? But we are trying to get the learning machine to create these responses for us um, at the most accurate way in the less time. But what if the reasoning is completely correlated to the time that you're given the machine to do better?
Well, the re- that and
Because
I think
every
the
time
reasoning
I
is the more
feel,
important.
yeah, but because every time I feel like I read these reports, it's like it's pen on the second. Like I don't mind you taking a little bit more longer as long as you give me more accurate answers. but
Correct.
it's not like I am, gonna wait for a century. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well,
But
and
how much weight is in that? It's like very heavy, right?
yeah,
Mm. This is where the competition is.
um, I would, I would, the time of response, the time it takes to get a response is important, right? Because um,
Yeah, it
some
is.
of these, if you're in the cloud, you're
Yeah.
paying for that hardware.
And I get frustrated that I don't get the answers right away. It's not like I am saying it shouldn't be. Like, I am the bad user too.
But it all matters, right? It
Yeah.
all matters. The answers are right. The time
hmm
it takes to answer. But I think when we want to let AI handle things and
hmm
for us to trust that it will do the right thing, it's very important that we also have its reasoning as to why
hmm
it went that
Yep.
direction.
Yep. I.
And and I think that that's very important. And I think that's a differentiator with DeepSeek is that their report the report back that you get on its reasoning is very important. You get the what, you get the how, you get
hmm
why, and you get where it's getting its data from inside of its reasoning. And I think that's the differentiator here. That reasoning skill perspective. Um, and but that's a differentiator. And because it's open source, it's only a matter of time for all of these other models to come back and do the same thing.
Yep.
All right, so continuing from here, importantly, because this type of reinforcement learning is new, we are still very early on the scaling curve, okay? The amount being spent on the second RL stage is small for all players. Spending a million instead of zero point 0.1 million is enough to get huge gains. And that's where the money's going, right? The $5.4 million that DeepSeek spent was in this architecture. So
hmm
what Dario is explaining here is exactly why
The
DeepSeek got
shift.
so much value,
Yeah.
right? Why from the $5.4 million that they invested for their reinforcement learning, they got huge deep think reasoning
Research
skills.
skills. hmm
I'm getting some like you're like rubbing on something.
Yeah. Sorry.
No worries.
I was
Oh,
just trying to
you're
plug my
trying to plug it.
computer.
I
My
need to
plug
plug it
my
in.
computer. What? It's not doing it. And I
Awesome.
have no battery. Okay.
No worries. All right. So and that's what companies are now trying to work quickly to scale up their reinforcement learning, and spend millions to billions of dollars. So I think that it's just early on. All right. So now it's going to talk about the DeepSeek models. All right. Released a model called V3 that was a pure pre-trained model. It was a pre-trained model with a tiny amount of reinforcement learning training typical of models before the reasoning paradigm shift. So before the reasoning paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Then last week they released R1, which added a second stage. It's not possible to determine everything about these models from the outside, but the following is the best understanding of the two releases. V3 was actually the real innovation and should have made people take notice about a month ago. And Anthropic did. So it appears to come close to performance of state of the art US models on some important tasks, while costing substantially less to train. Although we can find that Claude 3.5 Sonnet in particular remains much better on some other key tasks, such as real world coding. So let's see what he has to say here. Oh, he has a,
Closing reference.
it's stronger on some very narrow tasks. Okay, let's go back to DeepSeek. Where was I? Oh, he goes
Right
on a
here, right
tangent
here,
here.
right
Yeah,
here.
he goes on a tangent on this. Okay, so da. DeepSeek's team did this via some genuine and impressive innovations, mostly focused on engineering efficiency. There were particularly innovative improvements in the management of aspects called key value cache, a method called mixture of experts to be pushed further than it had before. DeepSeek does not do for 6 million what costs US AI companies billions. I can only speak for Anthropic, but Claude 3.5 Sonnet is a mid-sized model that costs a few 10 millions to train. Also, 3.5 Sonnet was not trained in any way that was involved a larger or more expensive model, contrary to some rumors. Sonnet's training was conducted 9 to 12 months ago, and DeepSeek's model was trained in November, December, while Sonnet remains notably ahead in many internal and external evaluations. Thus, I think a fair statement is DeepSeek produced a model close to the performance of US models, 7 to 10 models older for a good deal less cost, but not anywhere
Okay,
near the
time
ratios
frames.
people have
Yeah.
suggested. Very true. I agree. If the historical trend of the cost curve decreases 4x per year, that means that in the ordinary course of business and normal trends of historical costs decrease like those that happened in 2023 and 24, we'd expect a model 3 to 4 times cheaper than 3.5 Sonnet and GPT 4.0 now. Since DeepSeek is worse than those US frontier models, let's say by 2 times on the scaling curve, which I think is quite generous to DeepSeek v3, that means it would be totally normal, totally on trend if DeepSeek v3 training cost is 8 times less than the current US model developed a year ago. I'm not going to give a number, but it's clear from the previous bullet point that even if you take DeepSeek's training costs at face value, they are on trend at best and probably not even that. For
It's
example,
the same expense.
yeah, it's this. It's like they spent the same amount of money that it would cost to do something that's already out there for.
Yep.
So we're expecting that this, yeah, and that's what happened. Like if you follow even OpenAI's, like the 3.5 model is so much cheaper now compared to the latest and greatest, um, and it can still perform some tasks, right? It can still
Mm-hmm.
do some of those tasks. All right. For example, this is less steep than the original 4 to Claude 3.5. Inference price differential 10x, and 3.5 Sonnet is better than GPT-4. I love it. We got to confirm that in the benchmark. So of course we got to understand that there might be some bias here because this is the CEO of
So,
Anthropic. Yeah,
okay.
so all of this is to say that DeepSeek v3 is not a unique breakthrough or something that fundamentally changes the economics of large language models. It's an expected point on an ongoing cost reduction curve. That's true. That's true because DeepSeek is not. There is no claim that DeepSeek is in the competition of the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
What
It's
it's
not in the
saying is
letterboard.
it's not on the leaderboard for the best. It's on the leaderboard for the cheapest
Mm-hmm.
and for the cheapest cost, right? So it's on the leaderboard for the cheapest for the value, right? So value to cost ratio there. So it's on the leaderboard there, but it's not necessarily saying that it's the best model. But it allows an entry point for small businesses to do something, to allow them to do something with AI, however small whatever those use cases may be.
Mm-hmm.
It's an expected point on an ongoing cost reduction curve that different. What's different this time is that the company that was first to demonstrate the expected cost reduction was Chinese, right? So that is the difference here. That
Mm-hmm.
is why DeepSeek is
It's the
so much.
big, yeah, it's the
Yeah.
big
Is that,
conversation.
yeah, is
Um,
that, go ahead.
mhm. Yeah, I was just wondering from the leaderboard that we saw the other day, how was the, so since we're comparing these in cost, because this was the big thing now, I wonder how the actual logic was. I think there was a term for that that we saw the other day. In the reasoning skills, I think there was a logical deduction. It within the same. What was the score? Remember that they were scoring each LLM based on
Oh,
several
yeah,
parameters. I wonder what is the actual thing, since we're just following the headline, so what's the price and such. But
yeah,
in terms of the actual result, I guess maybe we can just take a look at that.
yeah. Let's look at, we remember this.
Where was that? I'm
Let me
not
see.
seeing that screen just now. Where was that? I'm
Hold
trying
on.
to remember the. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So there's not on the
What a.
leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's what I thought. I mean, it's all just on the news.
Maybe it hasn't made it to the mod. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
So here's Gwen two. Here's Llama
Mm.
three.
That's one. Uh-huh. That's the other.
Okay, so it would probably be
In
right
between
below
those.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but let's see
Fair
some other
enough.
ones.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see some other ones. Give me 1 second.
Humanity last exam. What was this? Yes, it was this one. Here we saw the Berkeley.
Here's the Gwen 2.5. Yeah, so DeepSeek hasn't really made it to these leaderboards yet. I'm wondering
Mm-hmm.
what, I'd be interested to see what. Oh, here it is, DeepSeek Decoder version 2.
Number 38. There you go. Okay. There you go. A lot of
You
questions
see,
might be
cost not
answered.
applicable because you can run it locally.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, it's not a conversation about if it's better than the U.S. market. It's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation of the cost
Exactly.
um, to run a model, right? Because either way, you're better off having a model than not using one,
They're not using any. Exactly.
right? Humans plus AI versus humans without it is the conversation here. So okay, let me go back to this. All right.
Yep. Let's go.
So that's
Okay.
a very key thing here, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
is that what's different this time is that the company that was first to demonstrate the next the cheapest reasoning model was
Mm-hmm.
Chinese instead of any of
Yep.
the US
There you
models.
go. It's a big
Because
statement.
yeah, so that's the difference here. And yeah, I mean, this was a first, right? This has never happened before and it's geopolitically significant.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the US will follow suit, right? So now, as you saw, right? Um, OpenAI, Google, like OpenAI, all of their models now have that reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
the reasoning portion to it, and they're all included. It's free. Whether so, it's and that's exactly what happened. Everybody's following suit, right? The first to provide that at a significant cost reductions was DeepSeek, but the next day everybody else had it as well, right? So um, I don't think that that's a huge thing. And they won't do this by copying DeepSeek, but they do, but because they too are achieving the usual trend in cost reduction, right? Everybody is following the same track, the same race, and it's just who's getting there first. This is a different race. This is a race to getting the value to cost perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the reasoning came, because now the deep think model was the first one to provide that deep reasoning to the market, um, for essentially open source, right? It's free, you can run it, and or the cost, for you to run it. um, but now everybody has the same ability, right? What does he say now? So both DeepSeek and US AI companies have much more money and many more chips than they used to train their models, to train their headline models. The extra chips are used for R&D to develop the ideas behind the model, and sometimes to train larger models that are not yet ready, or that needed more than one try to get it right. It's been reported, and we can't be certain true if it's true, that DeepSeek actually had 50,000 Hopper generation chips, which, okay, so it's, H100s. Let's say I said they had 50,000 H100s, which was subtly incorrect. The summary of the reporting, which I want to correct here. By far, the best known Hopper chip is the H100,
H100s.
which is what I assumed was being referred to, but Hopper also includes H800s and H20s, and DeepSeek is reported to have a mix of all three, adding up to 50,000. That doesn't change the situation much, but it's worth correcting. I'll discuss the H1 820 more when I talk about export controls. Okay. When does he have the time to write this? Which I guess
Right.
is which I guess is within a factor of 2 to 3x of what the major US AI companies have. For example, it's 2 to 3x less than the XAI Colossus cluster. Okay, so that they have more chips than XAI. These 50,000 Hopper chips cost on an order of $1 billion. Thus, DeepSeek's total spend as a company, as distinct from spend to train an individual model, is not vastly different from US AI labs.
Mm-hmm.
Mic drop.
Exactly.
It's worth noting that the scaling curve analysis is a bit oversimplified because models are somewhat differentiated and have different strengths and weaknesses. The scaling curve numbers are a crude average that ignores a lot of details. I can only speak to Anthropic's models, but as I have hinted at above, Claude is extremely good at coding and having, well designed style of interaction with people. Many people use it for personal advice or support. On these and some additional tasks, there's just no comparison with DeepSeek. These factors don't appear in the scaling numbers. R1,
Got
which is
it.
the model
So
which was
R1
released
is
last week, which triggered the explosion of public attention, and lost Nvidia 17% of their stock price. Much less interesting from an innovation and engineering perspective than the V3. It adds a second phase of training. Uh, Again, more reinforcement learning. We talked about that on Tuesday, actually,
mm-hmm.
described in number 3 in the previous section. Okay, and just essentially replicates what Open AI has done with O1. So similar scale and results. But because we're on
Okay.
early
Mm-hmm.
of the scaling curve, it's possible for several companies to produce models of this type. Yep, and that's what's happening. We're seeing it now. We're seeing it happening now.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're starting from strong pre-trained models. Producing R1 given R3 was probably very cheap, therefore an interesting crossover point. then and that's where that's where they spent the $5 million is really in R1. They don't talk about the billions of dollars it took to build V3. All right, so what does he talk about export controls?
So this is about the resources being
Yeah, the hardware.
allocated.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, people are just going to spend more and more money on training the models, and they need the hardware to do
Mm-hmm.
it. So what is he saying here?
Yep. Well, we were just saying,
Yeah, it's a replica of what we're just talking about.
putting it back into making even smarter models.
Yep.
Yep.
It's the same huge cost that we were originally trying to spend, that we were
Mm-hmm.
originally planning to spend. To the extent US labs haven't already discovered them, the efficiency innovations DeepSeek developed will soon be applied to both US and Chinese labs to train multi-billion-dollar models. These will perform better than the multi-billion models they were previously planning to train. Yep. So what we're talking about here is that we just need more money.
I think we all do.
Yeah, we all need more money. Making AI that is smarter than almost all humans at almost all things will require millions of chips, tens of billions of dollars at least, and will most likely happen in 26 to 27. DeepSeek's release don't change this because they're roughly on the expected cost reduction curve that has always been factored into these calculations. So nothing new. They were just the first to get the cheap model with that same technology. And and what's followed suit is that all the other models have also released competitors to that are probably a little bit better. This means that in 2026
Interesting.
and 27, we will end
Okay,
up in one of two starkly different worlds. In the US, multiple companies will definitely have required millions of chips at the cost of tens of billions of dollars. The question is whether China will be able to get them as well.
Mhm.
If they can, we live in a bipolar world where both the US and China have powerful AI models that will cause extremely rapid advances in science and technology. What he has called
Countries of
countries of
genius.
geniuses and data center. A bipolar world would not necessarily be balanced indefinitely. Even if the US and China were at parity in AI system, it seems likely that China could direct more talent, capital, and focus to military applications of technologies combined with a large industrial base and military strategic advantages. This could help China take a commanding lead on a global stage, not just for AI, but for everything. If China can't get millions of chips, will temporarily live in a unipolar world where only the US and its allies have these models. It's unclear whether the unipolar world will last, but there's at least a possibility that because AI systems can eventually help make even smarter AI systems, a temporary lead could be parlayed into a durable advantage. Thus, in a world in this world, the US and its allies might take a commanding and long-lasting lead at a global stage. That's true. I mean, we see it. It's just technology as a whole, right? Whoever has the best technology wins, right? So, well enforced export controls are the only thing that can prevent China from getting millions of chips, and therefore the most important determinant of whether we end up in a unipolar or a bipolar world.
Big statements.
Hmm. Let me just skim through this.
Oh, the
Yep,
other
this is
is
important.
too much speculation. That
Right
no,
here.
I was just in the other one.
Oh,
There
this
seems to
one?
be very talented engineers. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. The
because they.
second one was two speculations, and then the other one is actually true, obviously. the the obtations of the chips was that a big speculation smuggling really. It's like no, I don't know. Difficult to smuggle. Oh, I'm not liking the direction of this.
Well, I mean, he's going into. I think this is a conversation about, how do you enforce the export controls,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, if you want it, you will find it, and if you have a lot of money, you can find it. So, this is it's all about enforcement. How do you enforce that export control? And honestly, unless you put a license on every model, on every hardware, right? Then you make it a dud unless it can't, you don't have a license to operate it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see his final notes. Given my focus on export controls and U.S. national security, I want to be clear on one thing. I don't see DeepSeek themselves as adversaries, and the point isn't to target them in particular. In interviews they've done well. In interviews they've done, they seem like smart, curious researchers who just want to make useful technology. But they're beholden to an authoritarian government that has committed human rights violation, has behaved aggressively on the world stage, and will be far more unfettered in these actions if they're able to match the U.S. and AI. Export controls are one of the most. Okay, so he's playing onto that political of export control,
Mm-hmm.
which I just feel is a hard topic because that's how do you there's too many hands. There's just way too many hands to do that right, and
Yeah.
and so you need very good processes. You need like like I was saying, put some licensing on these things, and but then again, then there's the reverse engineering. It's like it doesn't matter. Just recreate something similar
Mm-hmm.
chipset.
Unbranded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else is there? So on another read, OpenAI accuses DeepSeek. OpenAI has found evidence um, that it's used proprietary models to train an open source competitor. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I I I, I for the most part agree. You know, um, for like I said, right? They used existing models to train their models to make their models better. Gwen 2.5 and Llama 3, um, and so um, for that alone is that they can only get better from the models that the U.S. will supply and open source, right? That are available out there,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have they have that good reinforcement learning framework that is providing them keep to to keep that cost low. And but now everybody's about to have that. So um, I think we're about to see some really great gains um, here. Everybody just got perked up, and they're going to continue the the AI arms race. All right. Reading always makes me
Interesting.
tired. It makes me sleepy.
Yeah, that was a great article. Oh,
Yeah.
that was an opinion, right? You told us this was
Yeah.
a. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is Anthropic CEO giving his insights on
Yeah.
the DeepSeek models, and then we gave our overview. So
Yeah, when I read about the military, oh, that escalated quickly. Okay, sometimes articles like this escalate so quickly that okay, we were just discussing something else.
yeah, you
Wait a
go from
minute.
here, and then you go
Whoa.
whoa. Well,
Yeah,
it's
like
true. AI is
yeah, we
AI
know, but
good, bad. Yeah, good, bad. Military.
but
It's going to be used. It's going to be used everywhere.
yes, but
So
but that's the thing. I think for the small cap that we're trying to wear and help one solution at a time. In terms of the small and medium businesses that we're trying to reach, uh, and not a lot to be worried about. It's just about picking the right solution, and and you can call us and discuss that for your
Yeah.
specific business.
Oh, I didn't even see if we had any chats, but it doesn't seem like we have any. But yeah, this is our space to nerd out. So join us every Tuesday and Thursday, 11:30 to 12:30, and we'll hope to hear from you in the conversation. Join the conversation, guys. All
Okay.
right, guys. Thank you. Take care. Thank you, Laura. Bye.
Goodbye.
Laura, you have a lot of